Hey everyone, and welcome to the premiere episode of This Day in Trek History. Hopefully you all got a chance to check out the introduction, get to know me. I'm Captain Bat, I'm your host. For those of you that this is your first video, I just want to give you a quick little rundown. I'm not going to really do too much as far as production history. You probably won't hear me say that Star Trek The Wrath of Khan first hit theaters this day, although I might. I definitely will hit major dates, probably, especially this day, Star Trek The Original Series aired. This day, Star Trek The Next Generation aired, so on and so forth. More than likely, you'll probably hear that, although you never know. Basically, what I'm going to talk about is dates and events in the Star Trek history timeline, whether it be past, present, or future. I might do an event. Like I might do Wolf 359, and I will probably just talk about Wolf 359, but I may also kind of relevant a little bit of dates or times before and after. You might hear me talk a little bit about the year that Wolf 359 happened, and then I might do the episode of Wolf 359, and I'll talk about things leading up to that and things post that date and that event. The premiere one, I figure I'm going to go ahead and start off with none other than the signing of the charter of the United Federation of Planets. That it was in 2161. But before I get to that part of the episode, I do want to take a few moments and thank everyone who's taken a few moments just to come by, check us out. As always, please subscribe, leave comments, questions, and concerns below. Check us out on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter, Captain Bat. Twitter handle is This Day in Trek H1. We're also on Facebook. We have a Facebook group, This Day in Trek History. Come check us out. We've got some great admins and moderators that are over there doing amazing things. So please check us out. I also want to give a shout out to the 7th Fleet. For those of you that don't know, I'm part of the 7th Fleet on the Star Trek, The Adventures of 7th Fleet on Facebook. And just want to give a shout out to them because this is where this has all happened. You're seeing these videos now. They've seen the videos in the past. So this is kind of a culmination of those things. Also, too, when you leave a comment, you can say, hey, cut your hair, lose the glasses, cut your beard off. This isn't you. Give it up. And the constructive criticism is always welcomed. Just being kind and nice to one another. Again, like I said, thank you for taking a few moments and stopping by. And hopefully you enjoy the episode. Hopefully you enjoy multiple episodes. Please tell your friends. And like I said, we're going to talk about the signing of the charter for the United Federation of Planets. That took place in the year 2161. And what better way to start than to talk a little bit about 2161. Now, the 2160s, we, on screen and in the timeline, we don't have too much as far as after 2161. That kind of is where Enterprise left off. I know I said I wouldn't talk about production points, but we have to at least give a little nod to that. Oh yeah, one other thing too, before I get too started, I try to keep it as canon as I can. Obviously, there's certain dates. If I was to do 2017, be a little hard because there's not a lot, but I will rely on the expanded universe at times, and I'll let you know, hey, this is from the expanded universe. We didn't see it on screen, but there's books where Dr. Crusher and Captain Picard get married, Crusher gets pregnant. Those are kind of things that I might pull from, and I might say, hey, this didn't happen prime, but this did happen in the expanded universe, and it's nice to know when it happened in the timeline. So again, back to 2161. We have a few things, and I do rely on notes. I won't lie to you. You're going to see my hands moving around. I am an Italian guy, although I play a Talarian. Anyways, so I do apologize for those things. I apologize for the condition of the production studio. Hey, you know, everybody started out somewhere, and hopefully this will grow with your support, and we can really make something out of this. Anyways, so obviously, the United Federation of Planets, the charter was signed. It was formed, kind of legitimized the United Federation of Planets. Also, too, Charles Tucker III dies. Kind of that was a sad moment for myself. I don't know about anyone else. The Enterprise NX-01, which was the original Starship Enterprise, I guess we could say, that was retired from service. Also, too, I will and I know this is a point of contention, I will talk a little bit about JJ Trek, just so that y'all know. It's considered prime. We have to at least give some recognition to it because we can't throw it on the table or sweep it on the rug as much as we'd like to. Major Balthazar Edison becomes a captain and commander of the USS Franklin. And also, too, along with that, Major Balthazar Edison, he was a Mako. He was a warrior. And Makos, they kind of, they ended in 2161 with the formation of the United Federation of Planets. And kind of the change a little bit, we had Starfleet beforehand, we have Starfleet afterhand. It's a different Starfleet. And when these warriors, these guys, Major Balthazar Edison, he was a fighter. He became a ship captain because, well, there's no need for warriors anymore, quote unquote. And we know what happens from there, obviously. And also, too, this is kind of a middle point if you think about it. 2160s, give or take a little bit. 2161, we'll stay there. But you're looking at kind of, it's 100 years since 2063, which was the end of World War III. That's when we see Zefram Cochrane take his flight in First Contact. And also, it's 100 years till we see Kirk take command. Well, basically, 100 years till we see Kirk take command of the USS Enterprise and begin his 5-year mission. Pike was in the 2150s. He was 2154, I believe. Let's see. I have it written down in my notes. Let's see. 2254 was Christopher Pike. So, and 11 years after that is when we see Kirk. 2255 is where we're going to see Discovery fall in. So we have Christopher Pike in 2254. 2255 is when Discovery is going to fall in, and then 2265 is when we see Kirk take command of the Enterprise. So just kind of give you, that's like 100 years in the future from where we're at right now with Captain Archer and the NX-01 and the signing of the charter of the United Federation of Planets. And it's kind of good to note too, as we go forward into all of this, it's good to take notice of a couple of events that, even though it's not the 2160s, we do have a lot of events in the 2150s that are building up to 2161. And you think about this, we've got 4 species or 4 planets that are signing the charter. We've got the United Earth, we've got the Talarians, the Andorrans, and the Vulcans. And what I find kind of interesting about all this is the fact that all these people, in way or another, were well, not all of them together, but 10 years in the 2150s, they were still fighting. They were still at arms with one another. I mean, we're talking that since the 250 years, basically, since the 1950s, we have the Vulcans and the Andorrans. They're kind of bickering back and forth. We start to see in the 2063, again, going back to First Contact. So you think about Vulcans and First Contact landing here on Earth. They're still in conflict with the Andorrans in 2063. 2063 is when we start to see border negotiations happening. But 2154 is when we see, and you think about it, 2154, that's only 7 years before the signing of the charter. And we're seeing resolutions start to happen between the Talarians, or the Tellarites, and the Andorrans. We're still seeing 2160 is the end of the Romulan Earth War. So a year before this happens, we're seeing conflict. So in 1 year, in a short amount of time, within the 2150s up to 2161, we see a lot of conflict end, and we see a lot of quote-unquote warring species come together. And that's huge. I mean, that's huge. You got to think about that. Just put that in perspective to today, as if we were to see any of these warring nations or any of these conflicts that we have going on just here on Earth, deciding to throw that all away to come together to unify. That's huge. I mean, we're looking at see, 2156 was the beginning of the Romulan Earth War. 2155 is when we have the coalition of planets formed, which was kind of the prelude to the formation of the UFP. This is where these people start realizing, hey, let's come together. Let's see what we can do. I mean, and this is kind of a result of the oh, geez, Louise, I can't even. Oh, the Babel crisis, where they came together to kind of go against the Romulans, where that drone ship is plucking off ships. So I mean, we kind of have that going on, and that gets resolved. And in 2160, we have the Battle of Charon, where that's it. That's kind of the end of pre-United Federation of Planets, or UFP for short. And we see that the Romulans, they get humiliated in a defeat. And that's where we see all these warring factions kind of sort of put those differences aside, because they realize, hey, if we come together and we unify, we have something that we can present to the galaxy. If you think about it, oh, hey, we were fighting against one another, trade disputes and border disputes and all these different conflicts. They start to die off. And now there's a unifier, which really I've always said that people come together when there's a common enemy. Well, the Romulans were a common enemy. Then they realized, hey, if we work together, we can do it. So they signed this charter. And it was 18 worlds that were in San Francisco when this charter was signed, in addition to the 4 planets that signed it. And of course, to kind of give it a little bit of perspective, when you look at Enterprise, Agent Daniels basically risks his life to ensure that not only is the charter signed by Archer, he shows Archer and he says, "Hey, look at this! Look at this! That's you down there in that blue coat, and you're giving a speech, and you're going to be a signer of this charter of the United Federation of Planets. And look at all those people that are there with you. You can't go over to the Xindi weapon. You've got to stay here on the ship and preserve the future." And of course, Archer's like, "Look, I have to save Earth, not your Federation." So we can see that, obviously Earth, this still has this United Earth, because they're the Starfleet, but they're United Earth Starfleet. And what's the Federation? That's myths. That's things that I don't care about. He tells Daniels that. He says, "Hey, look, And of course we can see the events leading up to it, obviously, how Archer, he's still kind of standoffish about it, even as he exits to go out to that platform. Of course, he becomes president down the road. But to stand there and to look out at Andorans and Talarians and Vulcans, and to know that the Vulcans and the Andorans were warring, the Talarians and the Andorans, they had their conflict, and United Earth, they not without their conflict. Obviously, they stood with the Andorans against the Vulcans, and were able to quell the Battle of Andor. But they stood with the Andorans. That's something to think about, that they all had their own sides and their own things about it. And of course, we know that the anniversary of the signing of the Federation, or the Charter of the Federation, was called Federation Day. We see that a little bit sprinkled in TNG. Troy, she did Federation Day with, 2s and 6s that were wild, and Worf was like, "Oh, that's woman's poker. Real men, they don't have wild cards. There's too many wilds." And so we see even that play into kind of like their social aspects of how important the signing of the charter is. And of course, when you look at like the Void, Janeway, when the Voyager enters into the Void, there's pirates. Basically, they're pirates. A ship enters into the Void. They attack the ship. They loot all of the resources from that ship. They either kill the crew or they send them to die. And Janeway says, that's not who we are. We are still Federation, even though we're in the Delta Quadrant. And she forms a coalition to fight against these pirates. and uses the charter as the basis of the coalition. We're not going to steal. We're not going to take anything. And even when they had the opportunity to plunder, plunder the ship, they said, no, we take what is ours and leave the rest. When the device came in, and I know I just watched this episode and I can't even think about what it's called, she kicks them off and risks the coalition. She says, I knew. And even Chakotay, when they're talking, and she's saying how he's talking to Janeway, and she's saying to Janeway, hey, everybody's working around the clock to fix your mess. Basically, that's what she says to Chakotay. Everybody's working around the clock to fix my mess. And she says, Chakotay's like, they have to. It's in the charter. So that's a little bit to think about, is just how important, especially in the Alpha Quadrant, and the Beta Quadrant as well, these worlds coming together and forming this federation. And you think about it, as time goes along, more and more planets enter it. There's more conflicts. I mean, the Battle of Wolf 359, even though that was a Starfleet, it was still an attack on the United Federation of Planets. And Earth. Earth is the headquarters of the United Federation of Planets, the UFP. So attack there is an attack on all the planets because it's the headquarters. You got to think that there's diplomats and ambassadors and whomever might be there. It's open for all the planets. And you don't see these factions. You start to see planets come together. And obviously the charter, it's based loosely on the charter of the United Nations here on planet Earth. And we know that the United Nations, when it first was formed, was basically all these different countries coming together for a common good. I'll leave that at that. And we see the same thing. All these different planets that the Vulcans, and the Vulcans didn't even end their aggressions until the Vulcan Renaissance was in 2154. And that's when they were finally to kind of resolve issues with the Andorrans. And then you see the Talarians do the same thing. And of course, Earth had a lot to part with some of those resolutions. So here it is again, people working together. And let's see, 2161 Starfleet, like I said, that's when this happens. It goes there. 2150, we have the United Earth Government, and the United Earth Government, that's how we get Starfleet. That's how we get all of this exploration and to boldly go where no one's gone before. That's where this starts. So in 11 years from that, we have the United Federation of Planets. 11 years, a lot of things happen. One thing I didn't want to touch on, and I almost forgot about this. I want to do two quotes real quick. One is from James T. Kirk, done in 2269. A dream that became a reality and spread throughout the stars. That's what he's speaking about when he references the UFP, the United Federation of Planets. But it started with this charter. It started with we agreeing to these binding terms that each one of us will live out and say, hey, yeah, we're not going to do this. Ben Sisko, 2372, when he's talking to Okorum, he says that by taking Bajor to the Jajara caste system, they can't become members of the United Federation of Planets because the charter specifically says no caste-based discrimination. None. It goes against the charter. You can't do that. We see other instances where the charter is used as basis, kind of like almost of a moral authority, saying, hey, look, we can't do that or we can do that because the charter either prevents it or it challenges us or calls us into action to do something. And that's where I was leading up to the charter versus the Constitution, because there is a Constitution for the United Federation of Planets, and then there's the charter for the United Federation of Planets. And the biggest difference kind of is what I was alluding to before. The charter is kind of like, this is what you must abide by, or this is where you must go with your quest for enlightenment, so to speak. I don't know if that's that's kind of maybe a cheesy way to say it. But the charter is, this is what we abide by, and if you abide by these and you stay honest and true to these, then you could be members of the United Federation of Planets. And the Constitution, basically, it was, if you're a member and you abide by these are your rights, and this is what we give you. Kind of like the Constitution of the United States, is that these are your rights as a member of the United Federation of Planets. So that's kind of the division there. And you see that a little bit, kind of Deanna Troi in the, These Were the Voyages. She kind of alludes a little bit, and there's a blurring in there. But that's something you have to think about is, this is what we agree to. These four member species, these founding species, they agreed and said, hey, this is what it's going to be. And they set the precedent for any future members that you have to agree. No discrimination. All these things. And if you do, not only will you get the protection of the United Federation of Planets in this agreement, whether the protection is a military protection, trade protection, you also have these rights. That's huge. That's unifying not just a world, but different factions that were fighting within 10, 11 years. Now, before I end today's video, the premiere episode, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it, I want to read the excerpt that we have from the Charter. We, the life forms of the United Federation of Planets, determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, and to reaffirm faith in the fundamental rights of sentient beings, in the dignity and worth of all life forms, in the equal rights of members of planetary systems large and small, and to establish conditions under which justice and respect for the obligations arising from treaties and other sources of interstellar law can be maintained, and to promote social progress and better standards of living on all worlds, and for these ends to practice toleration and live together in peace with one another, and to unite our strength to maintain interstellar peace and security, and to ensure, by the acceptance of principles and institutions of methods, that weapons of destruction shall not be used, save in the common interest, and to employ interstellar resources for the promotion. And then it cuts off. That's the only excerpt we have. That's huge. I mean, you can see the UN in there quite a bit, but that's huge. And when you think about it, I kind of wonder that last little excerpt that I read, and I'll go back to it. I'll read it one more time if I can bring it up. Of course, I exited out of it. Right here, the acceptance of principles and institutions of methods that weapons of destruction shall not be used, save in the common interest, and to employ interstellar resources for the promotion. Now you think about that. Weapons of mass destruction. Now I said 2160 was kind of the end of the Romulan Earth War. But what happened from the Romulan Earth War? The Romulan neutral zone was set up. There was an agreements that Starfleet would not have no. But this sets precedence down the road. Starfleet doesn't have cloaking devices. And these agreements are saying, hey, even though the Romulans are a common enemy, do we see foundations laid there for future events? Well, anyways, I hope that all of you all enjoyed today's episode. Like I said, this is this day in Star Trek history. I'm your host, Captain Bat. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, say, hey, look, dude, get out while you're, quit making a fool of yourself. Shave, get a haircut, whiten your teeth. That's all fine. Please look for us on Facebook. Look for us on Twitter. We're linked with Twitter on the YouTube page. And like I said, we're growing this. I want to say thank you very much to... I'm not going to say my staff because they're not my staff. Although a great captain always has a senior staff of officers, I want to say thank you very much to them. I've got quite a few of them, so I want to give a quick rundown to Rob, Josh, Keith, Alex, Tin Man. No specific order. It's just the way I had it off the top of my head. I want to thank so much for you guys. Those guys are doing graphics for us. As we get the graphics going, they're managing our Facebook page, our Twitter accounts. They're trying to reach out to you all and make us accessible, because I can't do it alone, and really try to bring what you want, to make videos that you guys want, to have a Facebook page that's going to reach you guys. It's going to get, not only promote the video, because that's what we're here for, but to bring you news and events and whatever else it is that we can do. And I just want to say thank you and a big shout out to them. I also want to say a big shout out to Stuart Foley and Samuel Cockings, the hosts of Trek Yards and Fleet Yards. They've been a real big supporter for me. I would not have taken it from the 7th Fleet to YouTube. And I really want to thank those guys. And if you have a few moments, check those guys out. Stop by their YouTube pages and give them a couple likes. Subscribe to them. They're doing great stuff. I hope one day to have this little video that we're doing be as great as those videos that they're doing. So stop by, support them. Tell everybody. Tell your friends. Give us a like. And hopefully, we'll make something of it. Again, I just want to say thank you for all of you for taking your time out. 26 minutes, man. 26 minutes you spent with me, and I appreciate that. Until the next episode, live long and prosper. This is Captain Bat, and you've been watching This Day in Star Trek History.